Right before I got drafted, and I knew I would probably wind up getting drafted, as I graduated a 2-year college in the state of New York, and then I transferred to UK, and I lasted 1 semester. I was just way too close to the horses. I was in the horse business, and as you know, Lexington and everything is way too close to the horses. So I dropped out, and I was on the racetrack working for a top stable, shipping all over the country, racing horses. So it was a pretty good life. You're seeing a whole lot of country and having a good time. And then I basically got the notice and I did get drafted.
Kind of a party guy, philosophy major, and actually for some reason, which I to this day don't understand, had very good rankings through the ROTC program, and said, well, maybe I'll consider the military as went into it with the idea of probably as a regular Army officer. In fact, I went in regular Army. I did not go in reserved. I went in as regular Army and actually went in with part of the class of '66 from West Point. We all arrived at the same time. So almost all my friends were West Pointers.
Well, my life before I got drafted was pretty chaotic. 1968 was a strange year for everybody in the United States, especially for me and my wife. It was a wild year, and then the kids came in January of '69, and I went to check on my draft status when I went to the draft board to tell them that I was now married, now had a couple of kids, and they listened very intently. And on my way out, I'll never forget, I was getting ready to open the door, and the draft board commissioner said, "Excuse me, have you had a physical yet?" And I went, "Well, no, I haven't had a physical yet." So needless to say, about a month later, I got a letter and dropped the letter on the ground and picked it up, and it's greetings from representatives, in your county have deemed you. So anyway, it was pretty chaotic. I had just flunked out of college, had gotten married in September, and then had twins in January. So everything was really, really happening. I had no job, but had plans, had big plans. And then when I got drafted, it was kind of a culmination of a strange period of time. So it was a little bit chaotic, but very, very good.
Most of my class went to 11 Bravo infantry school, and my orders were different. I went to communications, but then I found out that my security clearance came back not top secret crypto clearance, but secret crypto. And so I was not going to Washington, D.C. And so I went to Vietnam as a communications expert. And so that's basically what I did. I would work, put together codes, I would put together call signs, I'd put together frequencies. And so I basically had a desk job. I was one lucky young man.
Wow, yeah.
And then I got bored. There was a shortage of door gunners and helicopter crews. And I already had one friend who had been shot down 2 or 3 times as a door gunner. I had one friend who was a pilot, and he had already got the Bronze Star for bravery. And so I felt, by sitting behind a desk in Vietnam, that I wasn't exactly pulling my weight. So on my days off, I volunteered to be a door gunner with the 120th Assault Helicopter Company. I put off telling my folks that I'd done that, but I did write to my dad to let him know if something happened, that's how it happened. So it's certainly the most exciting part of my career in the Army. So that's what I did. That's how I got there.
In Vietnam, my primary role, I was in 2 different areas. The first one I was in was a supply headquarters. I was part of the 278th Supply and Service Battalion, and their responsibility was all the material that came into Vietnam came through the 278th Supply and Service Battalion. I was in the headquarters company. I was injured a month in. It was a lifting injury, and so I spent a month back at our headquarters company. While I was there, the company clerk for the headquarters company rotated home. He was from Louisville, and he went home, and they looked at my record. Of course, I was a college student, and I had been a company clerk before, so I became the company clerk for the headquarters company of Supply and Service Battalion.
Well, that's probably the toughest thing that the GIs, the soldiers had. First of all, when you got there, you landed, the smell was so great that it'd take your breath. And then you wasn't used to seeing huts and stuff like that. We was different kind of climate. It was so hot and humid, and in the daytime you got up to 110, 15 degrees. And then at night you'd be out on an ambush or the LP listening to patrol or something, and you'd be freezing after the dark. You get cold. But it was hard to adjust. It's hard life.
Coping, it was difficult. My first day on campus, my first day in country, I had never pulled any duties of any kind, like guard duty or KP, because I was always in a headquarters company. But my first duty was guard duty. And there I was in Vietnam. They said, here's a weapon. They gave me a weapon, one that I recognized. And then they said, we have a guard station for you to go to. And there were things going off in the air, lots of noise, and I saw helicopters flying around with shooting down at the ground and all this. And there I was, put out in a little guard station out in the middle of nowhere with just one light and me with my weapon. And I sat down. They said, we'll be back in 2 hours to pick you up. I said, okay. And so here I am. I'm a nervous wreck, first day in country, all this activity going on. So I sat there for 2 hours in the dark. But, I was, fairly smart. I got out of the light. I got off to one side because I didn't want to be a target. So after 2 hours, they came and picked me up and went back, and I rested 2 hours, and they took me back. Well, the second time I went back, again, I got out of the light. I walked the perimeter to see what was there. And then I thought, well, I better check this weapon to be sure it works. So I took the weapon and checked it out. And there was a magazine in there. I pulled the magazine out. There were no bullets. I thought, well, that would have been exciting. So then I had a bandana with all these magazines in it. So I pulled each magazine out. Every magazine was empty. There were no bullets in this. And I thought, what in the world am I guarding? So when the guy came back, it was just starting to get daylight. They came back to pick me up, and I said, well, what am I guarding anyway? And I said, I noticed that there were no bullets. He said, we don't give any people any bullets. He says, you were guarding speedboats. And Cameron, where I was stationed, there was the Cameron Bay, and a lot of people would come there for R&R. And during that R&R time, they would let them have boats to go riding in the bay, and they could go water skiing. And I was guarding speedboats with no bullets. So it was pretty exciting. It was scary.
But it was, Vietnam was like when you went over the first 3 months, you were just scared to death of, new surroundings. And then for about the next 6 months, you didn't care. You just went on with it. Because there was days you didn't know if you was going to live the next day or what. And when you got down to the last 3 months, you started getting a little nervous. Last month was awesome. I mean, it was scary. If you shot around a tree or something, you didn't stick your head out. But the last 30 days, you just wanted to survive and get home.
You just do it. You don't get a choice. I will say this, in the field, 2 days in the field, I thought I was there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in the field, I thought I'd been there for 2 months. 2 months in the field, you thought that's the only thing you've ever done in your entire life.
You know, I personally had, I didn't have a problem coping. My mindset, you know, you consider I was in the Marine Corps. At that point in time, I was a hawk, if you will. We were there for a purpose, okay? I mean, this is early, this is 65. Me personally, the biggest thing I had problems with were the snakes. There was 22 varieties of snakes in Vietnam, and I think 21 of them are poisonous. Now, if somebody shoots at you, what do you climb a tree or you dive on the ground? Well, on the ground, that's where the snakes are. I had more problems with snakes and the climate. You know, I've always been fair-haired, if you will, and I must have had every skin disease that you can imagine. The monsoon season, you know, it's just constant rain, and it's 110 degrees at 9 in the morning. You know, I mean, oh boy, I suffered with that. The snakes and the skin problems more than anything else.
I dealt with that pretty well because my dad would sent me back in the day, a small cassette recorder, and between sending cassettes back and forth, and in those days, I guess you still can, you could tape right over one and send it back. And one thing the military did have was all free postage, and so we could send stuff back and forth like that. And then I did, because I had so much free time at night, during work, I wrote a lot of letters and answered a lot of letters and did the taping, so I was able to deal with that. And then I also, the Army was pretty good. If you were in Vietnam, you got a 1 week R&R, and you also got a 1 week leave. And so I met my girlfriend, who has now been my wife for 45 something years, in Hawaii, and that was my end of it was all paid for, of course, by the military and all. So it was it was broken up enough you could deal with it.
Well, one of the things that we did in our unit, and I found out that it was done in units all over Vietnam, is I took a map of Kentucky, because that's where I was coming back to, and the map had each one of the counties, and there were 120 counties. So when I was 120 days out, every day I would color in a county. I started alphabetically, but I saved 2 counties at the end. One was Scott County. The other was Greene County. Greene County, where my spouse was, and I planned to come back to Scott County to finish my last year of school. So every day I would color a different color, and of course my map was beautiful. It was a nice map, very colorful. On the last 2 days, the day before, I colored in Scott County in orange because of Georgetown orange and black. On the last day I colored Greene County, I colored it in green.
Changing a wedding that was supposed to be in September and everything was done. That was physically the hardest. My mom and dad had moved away and trying to rearrange all those wedding plans that should have taken place in September. But as I said, I was lonely. I remember that because my mom and dad had gone. He was gone. But I stayed busy. So I would have to say that I didn't understand, as I said, the gravity of what he was experiencing. So to say that I missed him, But to say that I understood, I didn't. So I don't know that I would say that I had any undue anxiety because I didn't really understand.
I remember when Bob Hope came to Cameron Bay, and that was an exciting time. And of course, Bob Hope, I think, had entertained my dad when he was in World War II. So this was really big, and we knew when he was going to be on TV, we knew it had been taped. So we gathered around the TV to watch it, and I remember my little sister saying, "Oh, there's Flash, I see him." I'm sure that was just a pipe dream because there were thousands of people there, but thousands of soldiers. But I remember that specifically, just thinking, oh, to get a glimpse of him would just be amazing. But he did send pictures, and when he came home to us, he was tan from being at Cameron Bay, but he only weighed 140 pounds. He was lean and mean.
I had a pretty calm life. I was the mother of twin daughters, so most of my day was made up of taking care of those twins, and that kept me occupied. And we felt pretty much remotely removed from all of the goings on in the United States at that time, so it was pretty calm there. We communicated the old-fashioned way with letters, and I also used Polaroid camera and could take pictures of the girls most every day and put a picture in the letter and send it off to Wayne. And he wrote very often. Sometimes there were gaps in our communication due to his being in Vietnam, and things weren't always scheduled, like postal delivery, things like that. But I have many letters that he wrote me.
Well, I was apprehensive about Skip going to Vietnam since I had lost the nephew prior to that. The nephew had stepped on a landmine and they couldn't open his casket, the body bag, or anything. And just the experience of having lost the nephew, it bothered me, and I was apprehensive the whole time Skip was gone, of course.
We'd been out in the field for, 10 days, I think. And my guys were in a bad way. They were just, being out in the field is no fun. I mean, I guess maybe that's the only way I can put it, no fun. But they came back, and they were good Marines, these guys. They were just solid guys. They all wanted to go home, whatever. And I thought, I got to do something for my men, okay, something. And the ROK Marine Corps, Republic of Korea Marine Corps, was attached to us. And believe me, these were good troops. Oh, they were good troops. Anyway, they had, their disciplines were a little different. I mean, they had beer and they had all kinds of stuff. We had beer, but you had to go, you weren't carrying it around with you, Anyway, I traded two Jeeps. They were covered with mud, so as my claim to innocence, I didn't know who they belonged to. They didn't belong to us. I traded two Jeeps for 12 cases of Korean beer. And the Korean beer, I think if I could find the label, it was licorice. It was black. And man, I'm telling you, did it have a kick. It really did. So here, my guys are happy. I got them beer. And then when they came looking for the Jeeps, I don't know. I mean, over there, stealing stuff was, I said, I don't know. They were here a minute ago. I know where they went. Hey, give me another beer, will you?
Well, I'll tell you, when you're 19 years old, you get a shock. I was probably one of the lucky ones. Seemed like my first sergeant wanted me out of the field all the time. I got to go down and see the U.S. O show with Bob Hope and Nita Franklin, and there was a little blonde dancer from Chicago. I got to go with that. Every time they needed something apart, he put me on a helicopter. He wanted me out of the field for some reason or other. And he sent me in. I carried the colors for General Westmoreland. When he succeeded General Depew, I carried his colors. And then that following week, my first sergeant sent me back in for an interview with Everett Colonel Kitches, a full bird colonel, to interview to be his jeep driver and RTO. And he said to me, he said, I'm going to give a soldier a break off the line, out of the field. And as he was talking, I was sitting there thinking about my squad. And I said, sir, I said, you got the wrong buck sergeant. I said, I can't do it. He said, no, you got the job. I said, no, I'm going back to the field. And then we talked a few minutes, and I got on a helicopter and flew back to the field. Well, not knowing, but a couple of days later, I thought about that job. But that's history.
So we waited some more, and then they finally come over and said, okay, the plane was coming in, we were going to go out on. It would, as soon as it unloaded, we would take a little board and take off. So the C-130 came in and turned around, and its ramp was right pointed towards us. And we got our gear ready. They unloaded lowered the ramp and unloaded, and they carried off 7 stretchers with bodies. They were covered with blankets and ponchos, and all you could really see was their boots and the bottom parts of their utilities. The guy that they set him on the runway in front of us, and ambulances started pulling up to haul him away. The guy that was in front of me, he still had stateside utilities on that still had a lot of color in them, and his boots were still shined. He had not been in country long enough for his boots to even be scuffed, which that has stuck with me my whole life.
But, you know, the loss of one of my good friends was something that I'll never forget. You know, you kind of hated to make friends because, you know, you could lose someone anytime. And, well, I did. And this boy was from Shelbyville. And we had a lot in common. And we had the same sort of duties. And about a week before we were to come home on R&R, he was killed. So that's, you know, that was a hard thing. And then when I came home, you know, everybody wanted to know where he was. And then he made it worse was his family came to visit me. And, you know, it hard to explain to them what had happened, you know. So, as far as any good memories, I don't really have any.
I guess the best memory is getting on a plane coming home. And, excuse me.
There's some tissue there. Take your time.
Sorry.
You're doing wonderful.
Of course, the people that you're with, you know, means a lot to you too. I thought I could answer that question.
As far as homecoming goes, it's not like you see today when kids come home, you know, and everybody rallies around them. I got treated real bad, you know, even when I was in the hospital by personnel there. You know, like, well, you know, you shouldn't even come home, especially when they hear where you were and what you were. Because I was in the Americal, and you know, they were kind of notorious. They had a lot of bad things happen, a lot of bad stuff, and so they just put that toward anybody that came back here that was in that. You were automatically considered a drug addict or alcoholic or a baby killer or whatever, you know. And you got to where you didn't want to wear a uniform, and they kind of told you not to because people just shunned you, you know. So I just kind of just blended into society, you know. I had my family around me, and that's really all that mattered. And I didn't want nothing else to do with it, never talked about it. And Even now, you know, I run into somebody about me, you know, and they say, well, you never did tell us much about it. I said, there ain't nothing to tell. I just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm never getting nothing like that again. I think what we did, it was kind of like more or less political. I'm sure it was. We didn't know why we were over there. Didn't accomplish nothing. I think we lost, what, 58,000 people. That's a whole lot of young kids. And I think the politicians may have learned something about it. I don't know. But of course now we've got so many bombs and stuff, you know, that you, before you enter a place, you know, they bomb it so much, there's not much left, you know. But still there is plenty left, don't misunderstand me. But we didn't have that kind of support. We had planes, you know, that helped tremendously. Sometimes the Navy would shoot, you know, but you had to watch them, because I guess that ocean does like that, and you never know where their shells is going, you know.
I tell you, back in the policy was you had 11 months on the field, out in the jungle, and 30 days back. When you got that 30 days, well, they left me and Sergeant Michael Yannick out there 7 days before. Well, we was about nails and two. And we were so mad. And when you did it, they sent over there these big tubs, and they had ice cream in it. So what they did, they had a tub, and we bought 20 cases of beer, and we were celebrating, and we put it in there. Well, not knowing, a day and a half later, they said, that afternoon said, get on this deuce and a half, you're going to Saigon, going to Tonson Nude Air Force Base, you're going home. We looked at each other like that. And all the thing you had to do down there was you had to go through payroll, so they give you money to you. And I remember getting on that plane, and the pilot said, do not unsnap your seatbelt until you see this light come on, and I will come on the radio and I'll tell you. That way you'll know we're up, or we can't be shot down. So we sat there, and there was 370 on that plane. And by the way, I think there was one person I knew on that plane coming back. Going over, I knew everybody, all 370 of them, because I trained with them through basic and AIT and jungle training and stuff. But anyway, we sat there probably stiff on the board. Nobody said nothing. You couldn't hear anything, a pin or anything. And it seemed like it was 30 minutes later the light came on, and I know it wasn't that long, probably 5 minutes. And he said, it's all clear, you're safe. Said, you don't have to worry about nothing. And man, we just pillars went up in there, and everybody jumped and kicked. And it was just unbelievable. Then when we landed in San Francisco, everybody kissed the ground. I think I ate a few gravels. That's how happy I was.